Good morning, everyone. How are you guys doing? Um, Obviously we have one issue within our team this week. It is Saka. We did see him with the squad, but that doesn't really mean much because he was with the City squad when he also missed out on that fixture. The only thing I would say is we have seen this situation before. More often than not, it does seem like Saka plays, and I'm more than likely to play Saka. And worst case scenario, I think Archer coming off the bench is all right. It is a Brighton team. And Archer actually played a lot of minutes last week, so at least a little bit more confident about Archer and his ability to play on my bench. As far as Tsimikas, not so confident about a start there, so therefore he also sits on my bench. But because I have no hope in Colwell whatsoever, even if he starts, Tsimikas is second bench, and that's how I'm lining up my team so far. But let's just quickly move on to some YouTube chat and use some questions. So Soldier Boy, hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for being around. Wayne Collins says, yeah, same issue with the Saka, I suppose. I would probably stick with Saka because it doesn't seem like his issue is a serious issue, right? Arteta hasn't intonated to anything as such. For example, if you owned Madison and he was out for this fixture, and we were initially thinking that Madison was only out for maybe this game, then okay, you should probably keep Madison as well. But Madison has worse fixtures as well after this. Remember, it's Aston Villa, Man City. Whereas with Saka, when you look at the next three fixtures, I would say still really good, right? You've still got Brentford, Wolves, and Luton. So yeah, I'd probably keep Saka and probably just hope that you have a bench player that can actually do quite well instead or in place. If you do something like Saka to Martinelli, I'm not so sure if that's going to be as good. We're live, CJ says. And then Bar says, morning, Fran. What's the question here? Should I stick with Saka? Yeah, once again, I don't really like the Saka to Martinelli move. It's just something that I think is a little bit sideways. It might work out, but I think sometimes free transfers are super valuable in FPL, and saving a transfer at times is useful. I know you've got two, but I would also just generally think about maybe, well, I mean, if you actually have zero moves to make in the rest of your team, fine. But I would say obviously have a look at your team, see if there's any upgrades you can make, even in terms of the bench for the future, right? If you can, let's say, go Lascelles on your bench, if you can go Livramento on your bench, I would do that. I would definitely play Maguire over Tsimikas. Thoughts on Douglas Luiz? I mean, I think he's an average pick. I think it's more so a case. I mean, I like to think that, for example, if you're a set piece taker or a penalty taker, in theory, obviously, the set pieces are a bit more random, like corner kicks, free kicks, things as such. But also your ability to draw penalties, your ability to draw free kicks, I think those are also amplified when you play weaker opponents. So tend to think, for example, when Aston Villa have worse fixtures, he's just going to be a worse pick as well. Morning to you as well. Morning Renzo, morning Ben. Morning Ahmed. So Eamon says, hey Fran, I got a quick question. You got to go eat, so you have to ask. Then then you'll rewatch. Should you get Bowen and Maguire from -4 instead of UDog? I actually think I think you should. If the issue for you is that you cannot field anyone else. So let's say for UDog, you've actually got someone on the bench who's decent. Let's say you've got, I don't know, Lascelles. Don't do that -4. But if you really need those players to play and you don't have anyone on your bench who can actually play for you this week that is actually any good, then you know your answer. Buenos dias, CJ. Chiseled Planet. You have a feeling that Watkins will haul. Are you saying Watkins captain? Rational Biohacker, thank you so much for the donation. Liverpool seem a bit burnt out with all these games. I mean, yes and no. I think one thing to point out is if you look at the Liverpool squad that played versus Toulouse, it was awful, right? It was a very, very clear B team, right? So even though we would like to say Liverpool have really good depth, I mean, this was the starting lineup. The starting lineup was, Kelleher, Kwanzaa, Matip, Gomez, Tsimikas, McAllister, Endo, Elliott, Bendoak, Gakpo, and Diaz. Now, obviously, look, some of these players can always feature in the first 11. Matip specifically, Gomez, McAllister, obviously, Elliott at times. But I would say, obviously, look, when you're taking out Sobo, Nunez, Salah, and even Trent, or even Allison, for example. Probably a B team for now. So I wouldn't be too worried about Liverpool and their strength. Also, keep in mind that Liverpool will be playing at home. So I wouldn't be too worried about getting caught up over the last result. Will Tsimikas start? I don't know, guys. I don't know the answer. My assumption for Tsimikas is that he is benched, which is why I have Tsimikas on the bench. Dimitri, thank you so much for the donation as well. Areola, Cash, Lascelles, Gabriel, Adingra, Bowen, Saka, Son, Salah, Watkins, Holland. Your bench is Turner, Guehi, Tsimikas, Archer. You don't want to burn. So I think looking at your midfield, very, very strong, first of all. Obviously, the concern is about Saka, but I think Watkins and Holland, I would not be moving them at all. Cash is great. I think Gabriel is great. Lascelles, I think Lascelles is good. Honestly, I would probably play... I might play Guehi over Lascelles, but it's up to you. I can understand playing Lascelles. You've got 0.1 in the bank. You don't want to burn. I mean, if you don't want to burn, I think the simple move is just to move out of Turner because Turner's lost his spot. So if you move into a 3.9 goalkeeper, you'll save some money. And then in the future, you can make some upgrades in the midfield. So for example, if you, let's say, wanted to upgrade Gabriel in the future, if you wanted to, let's say, upgrade Tsimikas in the future, additional money in the bank could be quite helpful. So I do think that would work out. Your team's actually, it's rock solid. And I think Lascelles is such a good pick because it seems like Botman is still struggling, unfortunately, to diagnose his injury right now. So your situation, I would probably do something equivalent to a burn, but obviously just exercise a transfer. So just go out of Turner, save a bit of money, pocket it, and then make some better moves in the future. And as I said, maybe give a consideration to whether you'd like to start Guehi this week. Because it's still, let's say, Crystal Palace at home. I know at Newcastle, obviously, probably still a better defense. But home and away makes a huge difference as well. So that's the other thing I would say. I might consider Guehi. I think it's very close in terms of Guehi and Lascelles this week. For example, if I had Trippier, I would definitely play Trippier over Guehi, right? But just based on my knowledge of that. I also think you probably don't want to be doubling up on Livramento. So that's the only reason why I haven't suggested Livramento. I mean, I guess, actually looking at your team, Dimitri, I suppose if you wanted to strengthen your team, I guess you could always just go Maguire from Tsimikas and then actually play Maguire. And that would actually be even stronger than Lascelles. But yeah, look, your team's incredibly strong. Unfortunately, you can't do a keeper upgrade. And also Areola has a great fixture. So it's not really a situation where I would recommend too many moves for you. Henry, thank you so much for being a 20-month member. Absolutely, I can check your team in private chat. So you're asking if you want to gear towards free at 18. So I think free at 18, and let's talk about that in the context of my team as well after this shortly. But I'd say probably, obviously, Chukwuemeka is an issue for you, but you're still in a 3-4-3, and honestly, the team looks really good. So the way I would do it is I'd probably, unfortunately, you've got 0.0 in the bank as well, and Taylor's quite nice. I would consider going out of Tsimikas, right? And then just sort of going to Lascelles, saving yourself a little bit of money there. Now, that probably actually takes you away from free at 18 because if you were to adopt a free at 18 strategy, what you would be doing is probably keeping Tsimikas because I guess in theory, if you think he can play any of the near fixtures, which are good for Liverpool, he's a good pick. However, of course, I don't think he is necessarily nailed. So I think that's the issue. But I do like Tsimikas to Lascelles just because it gives you a stronger bench, first of all. And second of all, it probably doesn't force you to free at 18, but it's a generally good move because it saves you money in the bank. And I think why you need money in the bank is because you've got Diaby on your team. If we have Diaby on our teams, the issue is we can't really go to Mbeumo in one move, right? Because I think we all own Diaby at 6.7, and then Mbeumo now is at 6.8. So that's one thing I need to think about, especially as a Diaby owner myself. So what I would do is probably either a Turner move or a Tsimikas move, and a Tsimikas move probably into Livramento or Lascelles. Depends on your risk appetite. I'd probably go Lascelles. But yeah, that's what I would do. And then actually in the future, you can easily go from Diaby to Mbeumo. You don't have to commit to free at 18 now, but I think free at 18 is a very strong strategy. And I'll go back to my team now just in terms of discussing free at 18. So for me, because I'm actually rolling my free transfer this week, if I wanted to go free at 18 strategy, what I would probably do next week is I might go into a city defender. And on top of that, I would go into Mbumo. Now, the alternative, I suppose, is I go cash into something like Lascelles next week. Or I go, let's say, I don't know, if let's say Spurs' defense look horrid and I have no confidence in them, I'll go Porro out, right? So if I go Porro out into Lascelles, and then I go something like Diaby to Mbumo next week, just because Diaby actually has a technically bad fixture. I mean, you could actually go Diaby on 15, I would say. That's actually a probably good landing spot. It really depends on how bad does the Spurs defense look. If it's awful, then obviously we just simply keep Diaby, and we probably try to enjoy the most of Diaby there. But I do like the idea of generally making some moves, like, for example, Alvarez in the future, because obviously on 15, Alvarez can be a very, very nice transfer for Watkins. And Diaby can be a very good transfer for Mbumo. And these are obviously commitments into free at 18. In this situation, I do think it's actually quite a strong move. So it really depends on how much you're willing to commit. And as I said, the defender transfer you make on game weeks 13 or 15 or even 14, depending on really whether you want to go out of cash or Porro, does speak to exactly, because Porro 14, if you get my point, and cash on 13 or 15, if you get my point. So those sorts of players, and whether you move into a Newcastle defender or alternatively into a City defender, makes a huge difference. Now, also, there could be a possibility in the future where, let's say, I go Tsimikas instead, because if Tsimikas doesn't play in the Brentford fixture, and for some reason it seems like he's very clearly the second choice or even the third choice, let's just say I go Tsimikas to Lascelles, and then in the future I go cash to Walker. So even that sort of move would commit me into free at 18 a little bit harder than I think most people would be. And then I can actually generally consider additional moves, right? When Brentford have good fixtures from a defensive point of view, which is basically around game week, sorry, that's Archer, that's a mistake. Let's just go into Mbumo's fixtures very quickly. I think it's around 16, yeah, or 14 basically. So if, let's say, I want to do something crazy, like let's say I go Turner into Flecken on 14 with money in the bank, then obviously I could actually very easily commit into these Brentford players very, very quickly. That's another opportunity as well that would also commit me to free at 18. Unfortunately, a lot of us have 0.0 in the bank, so we can't go something like Areola to Flecken. I also would not advise it. I think having two keepers is always better than one, even though rotation isn't ideal. The simple reality is, look, if we get Flecken on 14 as well, or even 16, for example, then actually that's another opportunity for us to start committing ourselves to free at 18. And I do think it's still a good strategy, free at 18. I don't think anything has changed so far in terms of EFL Cup results that make me think the double game weeks that we'll have later in the season are going to be that exceptional. So I think it's worth thinking about, but you don't have to commit yourself this week just because, of course, I mean, City versus Chelsea isn't a particularly good fixture. So do you even need to commit yourself this week? And as I said, even if you go to Lascelles or something like that, where you burn a free transfer, doesn't mean anything. You could still commit to free at 18 in time. All right, and let's just quickly go back to YouTube chat. Chisel Planet, thank you so much. Yeah, I think Walker is the best City defender, 100%, which is why he's the only player on my cheat sheet now. I was a little bit thinking that Guardiola would play all the easy fixtures, but actually I'm a little bit worried, even though Stones is out. Alvarez or Ferguson to bench. I'd probably bench Alvarez. I mean, this is Ferguson's best fixture, so if you don't play him now, and he was already rested for Europe, you should never play him. Doku, I think, is a bit overrated as a pick. I think we should not be looking into him. Not for this week, at least. All right. The chat is flowing, so thank you guys so much for also being on the chat. I really appreciate you guys being here. If you guys could like and subscribe, that would be ideal. As far as the spam, sorry, Jamie Evans, I'll answer a question, then I'll have to put you in timeout. What I would probably do in your situation is, once again, sort of sideways moves. Think about, let's say, Lascelles, and then call it a day. You might also want to consider whether question whether Dalot plays or not. Otherwise, I think you're in a good spot. And yeah, I'm just going to put you in timeout. Thank you, Chisel Planet. Start one, Adingra, Alvarez, Lascelles. I'd probably actually go Adingra. I mean, he's been incredible so far. It is Sheffield United at home. It is the better fixture. Why is everyone captaining Salah? So boring. I mean, I think the problem is everyone has average fixtures or there's a doubt. So there's a doubt around Saka, which creates the issue. Watkins captain. I think he's a great pick as well, for sure. Gordon, Martinelli, or Chan. I'd play Martinelli first, then Gordon, then Chan. Gordon over He Chan. I mean, as a transfer, you could do that. Yeah, why not? Ruben Diaz or Tsimikas. I'd probably play Diaz. Procurement says, "Hey Fran, Gabriel, Cash, and Mitchell pick two to start." Gabriel and Cash. I think. Look, you go with a fullback there, and then you just go with a better fixture in Gabriel. Lascelles or Livramento. I think Lascelles is safer, but the issue, of course, is with Livramento, you're sort of looking at higher upside. So the question is, do you want higher upside, and are you willing to take the risk? Ben C getting a gifted membership from Chiseled Planet. Thank you so much for the gift. And I hope, Ben C, you like that gift, since you're also quite an avid user on the channel. Is Trippier a viable starter? I mean, obviously he's a viable starter. Trippier is basically one of the few defenders in the game where you can always start him, no matter what. Tsimikas to Wan-Bissaka. I think that's a little bit risky, because I think even though Wan-Bissaka has been good lately, the issue, of course, is Dalot is still quite a competent player. So you might actually miss, for example, a certain fixture. And keep in mind, of course, Wan-Bissaka has come back from injury and played 3 in a row. So I think that's a bit of a concern. Bench 1, Porro, Cash, Gabriel, Adingra. I'd probably bench Porro. Lascelles over Tsimikas. I think that makes sense. I was considering Lascelles from Tsimikas myself, but as you can see, obviously, Tsimikas is just on my bench. So I'm not too concerned about going to Lascelles. And at the end of the day, Porro is still quite an attacking pick, and Wolves aren't exactly the strongest attack in the world. Porro to Saliba. I think that's a great move. See, if I could go Saliba, I would definitely do it. I just can't afford Saliba. How do you think the Chelsea City game will go? I mean, probably... I would like to think low scoring, but probably City will win something like 2-1 or 3-1. Yeah, thank you so much. Welcome to member, and welcome to manager as well. If I've mispronounced your name, also feel free to let me know how to best pronounce it. But I really appreciate you supporting the channel as well. And welcome to manager again. Tsimikas or He-Chan? I would play He-Chan. I think once again there's a risk with Tsimikas starting. Will Foden shine? I think Foden's a great pick for the big games ahead. I'm not saying he's necessarily a big game player, but I think the idea anyways is that Foden has quite secure minutes until at least KDB's back. The question really is when is KDB back? It seems like Pep said he's feeling good, but still quite a ways away, and the Foden punt can continue to last quite a while. Could do Cash to Saliba or Udogi to Livramento. I do like Cash. I think Cash to Saliba is nice. The question, I suppose, is obviously, is Udogi just on your bench? And are you just upgrading your bench with Livramento? Or what's the situation? Because ideally, I would play Cash and Saliba. But I can see what you were saying here. I do think Saliba is better than Cash. Watkins captain? I think it's a good move. BL. Definitely consider it. What are your thoughts on going Salah captain over Holland? I mean, that's what I'm doing. I do think Salah captain makes sense. I am Salah captaining. Let's do a poll, actually. It seems like a couple of people are on Holland, a couple of people are on Salah and Watkins as well. Obviously, there's still Saka. Yeah, to be honest, Bruno is a huge captain as well. So it's a pretty bad poll in that sense. I do think Bruno is a fantastic captain. A little bit biased because I asked the question based on my team. But yeah, I think Bruno is a great captain. I think I would actually say Bruno is probably the second best captain this week. Could I check Discord? Yeah, I could check Discord. Just looking at your team now, Soldier Boy. I mean, I think it's a lovely team, honestly. I would probably consider going into Saliba though. 100%. That's the move that I would consider. Hey, Fran, please pick three to start between Tsimikas, Gabriel, and I would go Maguire. I'd actually go Gabriel, Maguire, and Cash, and I would bench Tsimikas. Martinelli captain's actually a pretty good one as well. I'm going to end the poll here because it seems like Salah's been a standout captaincy choice. So you can obviously get the flavor that Salah's going to be the meta captain this week. But it doesn't mean other captaincy picks are bad. As we said, home games, always lovely. I think Watkins, Bruno, Saka, all good. Saka, of course, the query is just the doubt. So I do think that's an issue, just generally speaking. Bruno, yep, exactly. And Bruno, great captain as well. I'd probably captain Bruno over Watkins. I always love to captain a penalty taker. Gabriel to Saliba or Tsimikas to Saliba? I think Gabriel to Saliba is probably... I would try and risk Gabriel playing and go Tsimikas to Saliba and double up on Arsenal defense. But the question to you is actually, are you comfortable with the Arsenal double defense? If not, then obviously just go Gabriel to Saliba. Bring in Mitoma, Bruno, Martinelli for Madison. I think if you can actually afford Bruno, then just go Bruno. I still think Bruno has the best fixture out of all of them, relative to the price. I think I'm going to play Adingra over Mbumo. I think that makes sense, Ben. 100%. You're playing the fixture there. Got in Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Do you think Dalot is going to be benched, Chisel Planet? What do you think about that? If Saka was 100%, if Saka was 100% fit, I would give it. Yeah, I would 100% consider it. Why not Son captain? I think. Look, lack of creativity with Madison a little bit. He will be the penalty taker, which is a huge plus. But I think generally weaker team because obviously Udogie I think really helps with the way they play out the back. So do the center backs, and it's an away fixture. So yeah, I've heard that Dalot's been... I mean, I've seen, obviously, Dalot's performances lately, at least from the defending point of view. I thought he was actually quite good as a left-back in the previous league game, but obviously, you don't want Dalot making so many mistakes like in the EFL Cup or, like in the Champions League, so I can understand that. Why so boring? What makes Watkins captain fun, though? I like FPL points. If I think Salah's going to get more points, then I think that's more fun to me. Martinelli or Saka for 2 weeks only. I'd go Martinelli then, because with Saka you still have a doubt for this week, so that's the question. Any plans to sell Porro? It really depends on whether I free at 18, because if you think about it, if I keep Porro until free at 18, that's a pretty good fixture, Everton at home. The same with Cash, ironically, as well. He's got a great fixture on Gameweek 18, Sheffield United at home. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. Being last in your FPL league is way more boring. Exactly. Although I'm not saying Watkins is a bad pick. I'm just saying I will be captaining. I don't think Gordon is the best captain at all. I think, first of all, it's an away fixture. He's not even on penalties guaranteed. I mean, Raptor doesn't even own Gordon, right? So he's just saying it just to say it, in my opinion. What my clean sheet predictions are this week. I mean, Arsenal, and then that's probably it. Can have a look at some of the teams on Discord. So Uday's team. I mean, you've still got Burn. I mean, do you actually have money in the bank? If you have money in the bank, or if you don't, I'd probably just go Lascelles, like Burn from Lascelles, probably. And I would consider Ward-Prowse over Tsimikas, just because I'm not sure Tsimikas will start. That's what I would do for your team, Uday. As far as Alfred, I'd probably just go Bowen or Martinelli. Call it a day there, right? Because you can play Trippier, you can play Cash. I mean, your defense needs a bit of work as well, if I'm honest, but I think you should just risk Tsimikas in your situation. But given that Madison will definitely not play, I think you've got to go out of Madison and you've got to go into, let's say, Martinelli or Bowen. I'd probably prefer Bowen because I think safety there with the minutes going forwards. Yeah. Oh, Henry, I appreciate that. The usual, thank you, Fran, but as usual, I'm avoiding your good advice. I think Pinnock's a good pick, though, I will say. And I can see you're now committing to free at 18. But I think what would I say is don't commit to free at 18 just to commit to free at 18, Henry. Commit to free at 18 when it makes sense, right? This isn't a good week to go Pinnock, my friend. Chewy, I hope you're doing well. I read your thoughts on Twitter. I hope you're well, honestly. So, hope you're taking care. My move last week was unfortunately a terrible move, which was Lamptey to Tsimikas. So I've moved from an injury-prone player to a player who's not prone to playing football. So, yeah, terrible move, and some regrets already, but it is what it is. Thoughts on Kudush? I think you're spamming the chat a little bit, my friend, but I think generally speaking, Kudush is a great pick. The question, of course, is going to be when Paqueta is playing, does Kudush play 60 to 90 minutes guaranteed? Now, Kudush actually played really good minutes once again in the European fixtures, which obviously suggests that Kudush is going to be interesting going forwards. But what I would say is sorry, Henry, just to jump on to your point here with Lascelles. I think the thing is, if you think about how long your strategy is going to work, you'll definitely play Lascelles in some of the easier fixtures down the line. And ultimately, let's say with Brentford, their next best fixture is 14, right? But yeah, I see what you mean. I think Lascelles will also get some price rises, which of course is a huge plus to also transferring him in, because that actually will maybe increase the value of your team going forwards. But yeah, that's one thing to say. So, but jumping back onto Kudush, I think his minutes are actually quite solid now. He's firmly sort of consolidated himself with a starting team spot. But yeah, I would say Kudush is still a bit of a risk. I do like him as a transfer though, generally, and you can see he's appeared on my cheat sheet for that reason. Play Guardiola or Porro? I'd probably play Porro. How do I choose this week? Mitchell, Dean, or Douglas Luiz? I'd probably play Dean. I'd probably play Luca Dean. I'd play Luca Dean or Douglas Luiz, honestly, because I'd rather a fullback in that situation that's actually a bit more attacking, which Luca Dean is. I know Mitchell obviously scored a goal last week, but let's be honest. There is one player who's spamming like 20 crosses a game, and there's one player who was a bit lucky to score, just in general, right? When you watch style of play, etc., etc. Lascelles or Livramento for Burn. I think Lascelles is safer. I think Livramento is higher upside with a bit of risk, so it really depends on you. I do think Livramento is first choice though. Madison to Saka or Taylor to Mitchell to cover for Tsimikas benchings. I'd probably go Taylor to Mitchell then. But actually, no, you've got Madison. So I would actually say Madison to someone who's not Saka, because I think Saka's a bit of a risk, because we don't even know if he's going to play. Start Nketiah or Hwang. I'd start Nketiah, because the way I see it is he's probably fit to start or fit not to play, or unfit to play. So you shouldn't be penalized, let's say, if Nketiah is only going to come off the bench. I don't think that's going to happen if he's unfit. Would you start João Pedro over Alvarez? No, unfortunately. I mean, he played 90 minutes in Europe, and that's quite tough. I'd probably start Alvarez. Will Matoma start? Most likely. They just lack bodies right now, so I think so. Captain Haaland, more than viable of a choice. Is Saka playing? He's with the squad, but we have no confirmations on whether he's going to start. Maguire price rise. Yeah, I mean, Maguire is actually a pretty decent pick. Is Saka playing? We have no confirmation of that. No leaks as well that will basically confirm that either. So I think, play Saka. I don't think it's a huge risk anyway, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. Carlos MVP, your team. Your wildcard Gameweek 16. Interesting. I mean, I think your team's good to go for this week, so I wouldn't exercise the move. But if you've got one free transfer, I mean, one thing you can probably consider is just maybe upgrading Gabriel if you have the money. Alternatively, I actually don't really mind playing a Man United defender over Mitchell, but I can understand that Reguilon might not play that left back spot, but he could. So that's one of the issues, I suppose. I think you can keep your team as is if you don't really plan on making transfers, or you can always move away from Pickford because, arguably Pickford can be moved on. I'm just quickly looking for leaks now, guys, just to make sure that we have everything at our disposal. Doesn't really seem like we will have leaks. So unfortunately, I think there's also nothing to be really concerned about. The early fixtures, the Spurs fixture, most of the players that we think will play. Like Porro and Son should play. Porro was in training recently. And obviously, look, Son, why would he not? All right, so quickly going back to YouTube chat briefly. Mitchell or Douglas Luiz? I'd probably play Douglas Luiz. Would you start Diaz or Tsimikas? I'd probably start Diaz. My general thoughts on Tsimikas is that I think he's been awful. And I think he is pretty likely to be benched. So I'm benching Tsimikas myself. So I think if you can afford to bench Tsimikas, I'd probably do it. At the same time, I do think, for example, Archer is better than Tsimikas based on the risk. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Would you play Dawson, Tottenham, or transfer him more Estupiñán to Lascelles or Gabriel? I would definitely think about Lascelles as a transfer, Breno. Gabriel is also a nice transfer too, but I think the question I suppose is Gabriel going to run the risk of maybe actually losing his spot once again just due to maybe rest and rotation? Lascelles for Tsimikas, I'd definitely play Lascelles over Tsimikas. I think there is, honestly, I think there's a risk for Tsimikas playing this week. That's my genuine thoughts on Tsimikas. I'm not saying that he should be banished from the Liverpool team, but Brentford's a pretty tough opponent. They're also quite set piece dominant as well at times. They do have quite a big backline. So my concern is more so, stylistic matchup, what we saw from the previous game. Is it likely that we'll see something else happen? Mbumo in for Madison. I mean, I don't love Mbumo in as a transfer now. I'd probably still punt on someone like Matoma. I probably wouldn't be punting on someone like Diaby just because I think Diaby is a transfer to Mbumo in the near future. Whereas with Matoma, at least you can play him for 2 fixtures, right, so to speak. Gabriel versus Guehi, I'd probably still go Gabriel, but if you're worried about, as I said, the risk of rotation, then go Guehi. Haaland captain's fine. Son captain is also fine. As I said, I prefer Salah captain. I prefer the home fixture at times. I prefer the penalty taker. Obviously, Son and Haaland are going to be the penalty takers, but you get my point in terms of them playing away. Also, slightly tough opponent for Haaland, whereas with Son, what I would say in that situation is general team strength has decreased, right? Even the attacking team strength. We know the fullbacks are quintessential to sort of their style of play and build up. So are the 2 actual defenders that they were playing in the center back position. So that's quite a concern for me. Bench 1, Cash, Porro, Trippier, Lascelles. I'd probably bench Lascelles. We've already got Trippier. Enjoy them. So that's your question, your answer, Mankind. I have to put you in timeout. Sorry, because you're spamming a little bit. King Burns, you said Watkins or Nunez for wild card. I'd probably punt on Watkins. I'd probably punt on Nunez actually. I think Watkins doesn't have great fixtures going forward, so I'd give it a punt. Going back to chat, Chan or Mitchell. I'd actually probably consider. I'd probably consider Chan. Just punt it on the attacker. Generally speaking, I do like playing attackers over defenders, and obviously Spurs' defense not exactly strong right now, but I've got Porro, who obviously is an attacker too, so a bit of a blend. Hi, Fran. I got 2 free transfers. You got Porro, Cash, Taylor, Colwell, and Gabriel. Who would you transfer out and who from? Got 0.5 in the bank. I'd probably generally consider something like, so you'd probably play Cash, you'd probably play Porro. Actually, you'd play Gabriel. I'd probably consider Porro out for Saliba. I think that's one move that you can consider, or Cash to Saliba as well. One of those 2. Hey, Fran, bench 1. Gabriel, Livramento, Guehi, Cash. I'd probably bench Guehi. Tsimikas or Cash? I'd definitely play Cash. Do you think it's worth -4 to take out Tsimikas and Burn? I think it's worth taking out a Burn. I wouldn't jump out of Tsimikas though. Even though I think he's not going to play this fixture, I think it's likely that he could play some of the other ones. Silly question maybe, but Johnston versus Areola, leaning towards Areola. I'd probably play Areola. Yeah, I think weaker opponent, if we're being honest. Weaker attack in terms of Nottingham Forest. Went Madison to Bone last night. Yeah, I think that's a great move. I've been recommending right now Madison to Martinelli or Madison to Bowen. Madison to Bone / Eze also makes sense. Actually, yeah, if you want to save more money, obviously, you can go Eze and Matoma. Those are great moves as well. I wouldn't put that past you. Captain Matoma. I mean, he's actually got a really good fixture, so it's a decent punt, but obviously know that it's a differential. I like it, though. Lascelles or Anderson? I'd probably still play Anderson. Fran, I have a big benching headache. One more question on Discord. I'll check in a second. Could you check Discord, please? It will be Klingonger. Appreciate that. I'll actually check yours first, obviously, remember. Um, have I missed your team, Gotham? Did you post on what channel did you post on? Discord DM. Oh, okay. Message requests. No, I appreciate that. So you said as a United supporter, how good are Arsenal's fixtures? You hate how good Arsenal's fixtures are. But Alvarez and Anderson to Saka and Archer for a -4, or maybe Alvarez down to Nketiah this week and Nketiah Martinelli for this week. Okay, let's just have a look at your team. I think your team looks good in terms of starting fixtures. Obviously, I'd love to have an Arsenal defender in there as well, if we're being honest. But Alvarez and Anderson to Saka, I probably wouldn't take the -4 if I'm honest. Yeah, that's tough. Because the issue is we don't really know whether Saka starts, so you're sort of jumping into that doubt for a -4, and that could really hurt you. I'd probably, or maybe Alvarez down to Nketiah this week and Martinelli for next week. Nah, I probably wouldn't do so. I'd actually probably keep the team as is. I think Alvarez can be kept for a long term. But I think obviously in the future, it's actually probably Watkins who will probably leave your team, depending on whether you want to free hit 18 or not, right? So that's what one other strategic choice we need to consider. How much money do you have in the bank is probably the second question, because I would actually love to go for an Arsenal defender this week and probably maybe bench Guehi or Lascelles. I would actually rather do so, just because the defense is a bit weak on paper compared to some of the other defenses on display. But yeah, I mean, unless you're going to go Martinelli this week, I probably would just avoid going for the Arsenal picks, because you know that there's still a doubt with Nketiah and he's being assessed. Right, so I wouldn't jump into Alvarez, who I'm 100%. Yeah, no, I see what you mean. If you've got 0.0 in the bank, I would actually roll. You know, this is a strong. This is obviously like a slightly weaker team on paper, but the thing is, you run the risk of making it even weaker if you jump into someone who actually has a doubt, right? Because there's a genuine reason why, let's say, Nketiah didn't play in the midweek, things like that, and ultimately you can't go Martinelli from any of your midfield picks this week, so it doesn't make sense. And I wouldn't take that -4 because you're not going to captain those picks either. So I would actually keep it calm with your team, and I'm happy to look at your team next week as well. You're in front of me now, Kai. Yeah, I had a terrible week last week. I think I had 21 points. The same 21 that is needed for 100 likes, apparently, as Chisel Planet mentioned. So if you guys are here, if you guys are new, do feel free to like and subscribe. Appreciate you guys for being here. You're losing the plot now, but you're thinking Saka to Bruno captain. I think that's a good move. But Saka to Bruno, I'm not sure about that. If you're moving your captaincy from Saka to Bruno, fine. If you're moving Saka to Bruno, probably not. Not so fine. I hope you get a green arrow too, Soldier Boy. I think Livramento is nailed, but I think there's going to be a sort of fixture run for Newcastle where, because they're involved in the AFL Cup, involved in the Champions League, the issue is they're going to play 10 games in 31 days. So inevitably, I think some of these players are going to get rotated. Suryansh says, you don't know if you should be happy or sad because my tips are so apt and you love it for FPL, and the fact that you're not crazy famous is the icing on the cake. You'll get big though. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Start Mitchell or Tsimikas? I'd definitely start Mitchell. As I said, I think Tsimikas is running the risk of being benched again. Going for Son captaincy. Good luck to you. We need to jump on Chelsea players again. I don't think you need to jump on 14. I think Palmer's good on 14, but you don't necessarily need to jump on them like... I mean, their best result came when they were winning 9 versus 11. So let's be honest, they're not that good of a team. But 100% around Gameweek 16 instead is probably where I would say they're better. I'm not worried about... I mean, I think Spurs is weak, but I think Wolves is a pretty weak attack as well. And I'm less worried about Porro than I am about Tsimikas, which is why I'm playing Porro over Tsimikas. What's your last question though? Sorry. Can't really seem to see your question. Soldier Boy. Will Ferguson and Nketiah start? I think Ferguson should start. I'm not sure about Nketiah because obviously he's a fitness risk. Start João Pedro, Tsimikas. I'd probably start João Pedro, honestly, because I think they're both likely to start from the bench and you'd rather an attacker come off the bench. Maddison to Eze or Bowen. I think Bowen's safer. In terms of like, if you want to use the money, maximize the money for now, I think Bowen's safer. But then I think Eze is actually a really good pick. It depends on what you're enabling. So let's say you go Eze. What can you actually do with the money from Eze? And do you have plans next week to spend that money and can you maximize that? Start João Pedro, Tsimikas. I answered that question already. Will Wilson be fit to play? Can't confirm. It doesn't seem like he will be though. Let's be honest. I think they're going to try and preserve Wilson because this is one of their easier fixtures. It would make sense to try and protect him if possible. Start Adingra, Gordon. I'd definitely start Gordon. Just because I think Adingra clocked 90 minutes and I think Gordon will probably play. Good chance that he's in the center forward position, so that's huge for Gordon. Is there a case for Lascelles over Livramento? Yeah, I think the case for Lascelles over Livramento is we don't really know exactly what the issue is with Botman, right? Because he's seeing many sort of external specialists, and the issue has not been diagnosed. We're still unsure whether he's going to get surgery or not, and that's going to be a huge issue, right? He's looking for a second opinion. But what if the second opinion advises that Botman's going to get surgery? So in that case, obviously, you run the risk of Botman being a bad pick. And let's say the second opinion is that Botman still needs a lot more time out. So I think that's an issue. Who if you bring in Saliba, who would you bench? I'd bench Anderson, I think. And then call it a day. Best Saka replacement for 8.5 million. I mean, if you really are going to replace Saka, I would literally just go Martinelli. Or Bowen. The thing is, I don't really want to be replacing Saka. Like, I myself am not considering it myself. Who to replace Maddison with? I'd say Bowen, Mitoma, Eze, or Martinelli. Those sorts of picks. It depends on if you save some money with Mitoma and Eze, do you actually have the ability to, let's say, make better moves in the future? So that's one thing I would probably say. Martinelli or Gordon? I'd probably still go Martinelli. I'm not saying Tsimikas will not start. I actually own Tsimikas, and I think there's a likelihood that he will be benched, is my opinion. I know Saka traveled with the team, but he also traveled with the team for the Manchester game, if you remember, Ben. I would probably keep Saka, as I said. I would keep Saka, guys. I wouldn't captain him, but I would definitely keep him. Do you think Tsimikas will start? I personally think he won't. Holland or Watkins captain? I'd probably go Watkins captain if you really wanted to do it. I just have Holland as my vice captain just as insurance, basically. Mitoma captaincy this week. I think that's perfectly fine. I am rolling indeed. Gabriel to Porro this week. Do you mean Porro to Gabriel? Do you mean the opposite? Because I wouldn't go Gabriel to Porro. I don't think that makes sense. Apparently there are issues with the website. That's what Let's Talk FPL has mentioned. So try to make your transfers potentially, guys. I don't think we're going to get any crazy leaks. I would definitely just go... Oh, I mean, I wouldn't go Gabriel to Porro. I'll just keep Gabriel. Bench Diaby or Alvarez? I'd probably bench Alvarez. Cash and Alvarez to Trips and Archer. I don't really like those moves. I'm sorry about that. I'd much rather have Cash and Alvarez this week. Bowen captain a good idea? I think it's okay. I probably wouldn't do it. I like to captain a penalty taker. You're thinking you just transfer Gabriel to Saliba. I think Gabriel to Saliba is a fantastic move. If anyone's in that position where you're looking at 2 free transfers, you don't know what to do, Gabriel to Saliba is a lovely move. Going Ferguson captain. I mean, that's a pretty good Irish bias, I will say. Getting a start versus Sheffield United at home, that should be quite nice. We're almost at 100 likes. There's 99, so if you guys could actually send us over the line, that would be lovely. Hamad says he's got Lascelles, Livra, other in for Burn or play Tsimikas. Thank you so much, first of all, for the donation, Hamad. I would actually probably play Livra. I think Livra has a higher sort of chance of giving you upside, right? Because he's going to play either left back or right back. We've already seen him play left back. Keep in mind, in the Champions League game, he started right wing, moved to right back, then played left back. I think he can play all 3 roles. So I think Livramento has higher upside. I would go with Livramento, and I'd probably go him in for Burn, and then I would bench Tsimikas in that situation. However, don't do it for a -4, though, I would say. at the same time. Mitoma captain. Yeah, I think it's a perfectly valid punt. How risky is a Ferguson captain? I mean, I think it's hugely risky from an effective ownership point of view, but actually, if you're, let's say, expecting Ferguson to start, I think it's a perfectly valid captain. Is Gordon a min's risk? I don't think Gordon's a minute's risk. I think the issue with Gordon is we don't know if he's on penalties, and second of all, he's away. You know, I prefer a home captain. For an extended period, is Lascelles better than Livra? I think, yeah, in terms of the safety, right, in the short term, I think Lascelles is better, but I don't know. Like, we really don't know exactly what's going on with Botman. It depends on his, you know, he's seeking external specialists to give him a second opinion. As I said, the second opinion could be surgery, which means that Lascelles is amazing. But the alternative could be that actually he doesn't have a serious issue and that maybe he just needs 2 more weeks of rest. You never know. And Kedia captain, I probably would avoid that, my friend, just because we don't know exactly where he is. And the chat is going nuts, and I really appreciate you guys for sending so many questions, trying to answer as many questions as we possibly can. Best defensive assets. I think Arsenal, first of all, this week, then maybe one of the Newcastle picks, then obviously Crystal Palace. At the same time, I think Maguire is very, very good for this fixture as well. If you want to go Maguire, bring in Saka or Bowen. I'd probably bring in Bowen because I'm not sure if Saka's going to play. Take a -4 to swap Saka for Son. I would not do that. I wouldn't take a -4 to go out of Saka. No chance. Thoughts on Hee-Chan captain? No chance as well. I think it's still, look, it's a nice fixture because of obviously how depleted the Spurs team looks. But let's be honest, right? We all think that Sheffield United is one of the worst teams in the league. And what did Wolves muster up last week? 1 goal versus Sheffield United. So I don't think this Wolves team is like some sort of powerhouse of attack either. It doesn't mean that they're going to prey on the Spurs team like they're nothing. Mbumo versus Tsimikas, I'd probably play Mbumo in this situation. Thoughts on Livramento? I think he's really, really great as a pick. Honestly, I think he can play left back, he can play right back, and he can cover right wing minutes. So I do think actually there's really good upside to Livramento. Defenders 5 million under. I think Gabriel's up there. I think Livramento, Lascelles up there. Maguire as well. You know, ironically with the defenders, you think Nketiah captain's a perfectly valid shout. So you go for it. Come on, Charlie. I bet you don't even have Nketiah in your team. Is this the best week to free hit? Absolutely not. Everyone has a really strong team, so I would definitely not consider free hitting. I tend to think free hitting when everyone has a weak team is good, right? Because at least you're sort of raising the ceiling of your team. If you're trying to raise the floor of your team, I think it's quite different free hit. You can actually run the risk of going very poorly. Diaby to Mitoma. I think, yeah, you can actually do that move if you actually have no issues. Saleh Ahmed, thank you so much for the donation. Which 3 would I start? Definitely Gabriel, definitely Cash, and I'd probably start Shar. So I'd go Shar, Cash, Gabriel. Then I'd bench. I mean, the thing is, I actually think Dalot might be benched, which is why I'm recommending things like such. But I would probably put Dalot first bench, then Guehi. Your team's actually really strong for this week, so congratulations. Bruno Fernandes or Trippier captain. I'd probably go Bruno captain. Best Madison replacement that's not Saka. Probably Bowen in this situation. Alvarez to Darwin for -4. I wouldn't do it for a -4, guys. Gonna sort out bench captaincy. Good luck, Aguero. Bench and Boomer Palmer. Guys, the chat is absolutely popping, so thank you guys so much for being so active in chat. And I appreciate you guys have a lot of questions to ask as well. So thank you guys so much for being around. Alrighty, so let's see. Tough one, actually. Give me 1 sec. Bench 1. Adengra, Tsimikas, or Pau? I'd probably bench Tsimikas. Would you bring in Saka this week? Probably not, honestly. I think there's a bit of a risk. Any news on Wilson? No, we don't have any additional news. I think you if you don't own Wilson, don't bring him in. But obviously, if you own Wilson, I would generally consider a transfer out. Watkins or Holland as captain? I'd probably go. I think Watkins is more fun, honestly. I'd probably do it. I mean, both Salah and Watkins are incredible home players. If you want to do that sort of like logical check. Is that meant to be a funny joke, Crutix? I'm not jumping into that. Why aren't people going on Holland captain? I think it's just a away fixture first of all, and then Chelsea remotely competent defense. Xiang says, I have 2 free transfers, nothing to do. Tsimikas and Turner. Yeah, I'd probably go Tsimikas to a Newcastle defender. That's not a bad move. Tsimikas to Maguire is also not a bad move either if you want to play him, but it doesn't seem like you want to play Maguire, so you could just go Turner out in that situation. Raya will save a penalty today. I'm surprised you think he'll actually concede a penalty to Burnley, which is quite a shocking statement to make in of itself. Have I taken any hits this season? I've taken 0 hits this season. Thoughts on Bruno captaincy? I think it's a great captain. Thoughts on Bowen captain? I'm less tending to sort of go towards a captaincy that doesn't have penalties. So that's my concern. Why did I start Porro ahead of Tsimikas? My issue with Tsimikas is actually, well, the reality with Tsimikas is I think he's not going to start. João Pedro worth starting. If you don't have anyone else worth starting, then yes. But I think a little bit reluctant because he played 90 minutes versus Ajax. Watkins captain, I think is all right. What Newcastle defender, though? I think Lascelles will definitely play a few weeks, so that's a good pick. The thing is, as I said with the Botman issue is that we don't know exactly what his diagnosis is because it seems like he's still seeking an external opinion on his issue. I've already explained why Porro over Tsimikas. I think Tsimikas might not play. Or start, rather. Juven Nketiah, would you start him or bench him? I'd probably start him because I think Nketiah will either play or won't play. And I would probably, yeah, I'd start him. Yeah, Lascelles to Tsimikas is quite tough. I'm sorry about that, Tank. I mean, I also went Tsimikas last week and I have huge regrets over it. Tsimikas to Livramento is a good move. Did I answer a question? What was your question, Charlie? I probably did. Oh, who do you captain? Nketiah, Højlund, or Salah? I'd probably go Salah. And yeah, that's how I'd answer the question. I mean, I could also just go Colwill to Maguire, I suppose. If I really, really, really wanted to do that. But I don't know. Does it make sense? Probably not. Buy Bone or Martinelli. I think Bone is a slightly safer pick because we always know that Martinelli runs the risk of being an early sub at times. So I think Bone's a safer pick. Ben White also might score today. I mean, look, it's not like Ben White is a better asset if Saka's not playing, if that's what you're saying. Please answer this question. Matoma, Watkins captain. I'd probably go Watkins. Actually, honestly, I wouldn't really mind Matoma captain. I mean, Sheffield United are shocking. Start Saka or Alvarez. I'd definitely start Saka still. Højlund or Alvarez. Højlund, better fixture. Bench Mbeumo or Palmer. Probably bench Palmer. You once triple captain Bednarek. Oh God. Are you being serious right now? I'm sorry about that. Sorry to hear that. Bruno Fernandes captain. I think he's a great captaincy pick. Why doesn't anyone believe in Watkins captain? I mean, you should believe in Watkins captain if you believe in it. There's nothing wrong with Watkins captain. I'm just preferring Salah captain. Record minus guy. What does that mean? I'm so confused. Watkins captain locked in, baby. Chisel Planet says Captain Holland or Watkins. Probably Watkins is better. James Ward-Prowse or Almiron. Why Porro over Tsimikas? I just think Tsimikas will be benched. And honestly, Wolves aren't a particularly great attacking team. Son captain. Yep. I think that's perfectly fine, but you know, I prefer home fixtures. Is this my locked in team? Yes, it is. You know what? Actually, I got to tweet my team right now before the deadline. Let's do that. Is Dallo still an option? Honestly, I think he played pretty bad in his previous game, so there might be a chance that he gets benched. So I think it's a bit of a risk. Oh, thank you so much, Charlie Young. Really appreciate the donation. First of all, thank you. And Nketiah over Holland. Have a great weekend to you as well. Honestly, I want you to captain Nketiah and show me a screenshot of that after the deadline. So that would be ideal. Ahab says, hey Fran, please answer Udogie Lamptey to Tsimikas to Lascelles or Lascelles/Guehi. I'd probably go Lascelles. I think Lascelles is still the safest, but if you can actually afford, let's say, Livramento is a bit of a risk, I would consider it. The question is obviously The thing is, I think you've got two issues in your team, right? Because you've got Udogi and Lamptey who don't play. So that's why in that situation, I'd recommend Lascelles. But for some people who kind of have 4 defenders already, I don't really mind going for Livramento as a punt. Bring in Lascelles for Burn and Madison to Bowen or Alvarez to Archer and Madison. I'd probably do the Lascelles move. But I'm going to have to put you in timeout as well. Why did you say Tsimikas will not play and ruin me in the last 5 minutes? I'm not sure, by the way. I'm not sure. I just think he's been playing so bad that I think there's another... I mean, last week we didn't see Tsimikas play as well, so I think there's a pretty good chance that Tsimikas will be benched again. That's my opinion. It's not a fact. And that's why I'm putting the Tsimikas on my bench. I think the issue with Tsimikas as well is that if he's playing poorly, you run the risk of him being a 45-minute substitution again, right? So that's one of the issues with Tsimikas right now. Dallo or Tsimikas? I'd probably just play Dallo. Best defense for Gameweek 13. I mean, I think, look, Gameweek 13 is such a terrible, terrible week for defense. If we were really to sort of look at defenders just for Gameweek 13, I think obviously Trippier's up there, Anderson's up there. I think Porro actually has an okay fixture. Still Aston Villa, it's still at home. All the Arsenal fixtures, they're okay, right? It's still Brentford, but still, everyone has such bad games. So, yeah. I mean, let's say if Estupiñán was fit, I would have had loved to go Estupiñán. Maguire's not terrible as well, but it's still Everton away, so it's pretty tough. Yeah. I think Livramento is actually going to be fun there as well if you play a Newcastle defender. So Castagna as well from Fulham, if you really, really, really want to do that. It doesn't feel great, though, I'll be honest, backing a Fulham defender. So that's an issue. Yeah, I'd probably say, let's say a Newcastle defender, a Crystal Palace defender, or an Arsenal defender, probably your priority picks. And then actually, you know, when it comes to good fixtures, obviously West Ham have a pretty good fixture. When it comes down to it, it's got Burnley away, and then can't really remember. I guess Man City still. I mean, if you really back a Liverpool clean sheet, which sounds ridiculous, I probably wouldn't. Everyone just had a bad fixture. Like, I'm stretching here for answers, but, you know, just put your 3 best players and call it a day. Guecki versus Lascelles. I'd probably go Lascelles. I'm going to have to put you on timeout, though. Try not to spam the chat, guys. Everyone's asking their questions. But also, you got 3 minutes left to answer your questions, to ask your questions, and also exercise your transfers. Change your captaincy as much as you want. But for now, I'm locked. You think your bottling Haaland captain goes safe with... I mean, go Haaland then if you really think Haaland's going to do well. I mean, always pick the player that you think is going to do the best, guys. Come on. Sonny out for Matoma -4. I think that makes no sense. Don't do it. I think Sonny is such a good pick. Tsimikas starts. I don't know. I really don't know. I think he doesn't start. That's my opinion. How bad is captaincy? Bench Raptor, Fran. I mean, I'll bench Raptor because I back myself, but Raptor's a great guy. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Gabriel. I'd probably go Gabriel. Hey, Fran, please answer. Udogi or Lamptey? I mean, I answered the question already. I think I would do the... I would just go Lascelles, basically. And I'd go out of Lamptey. Madison to Martinelli also makes sense, so do that. Oh, sorry, are you asking, like, is it 1 free transfer then? I mean, then just do the Madison move, I suppose. Get in. Darwin captaincy. I think that's a bit of a risk. I mean, Sun captain, it's still versus Wolves, guys. I'm a little bit worried about captaining an away player when Salah has a perfectly decent home fixture. I'm just trying to quickly see for leaks, but it doesn't seem like we've got anything. So I think just make the moves you guys want to make, guys, and lock in your transfers. Guess who sold Saka to Bruno and captained him? Henry, you're a madman. Bro, absolute madman. Watkins captain Haaland. I mean, guys, pick whatever you want. You know, these are all good picks. Like, Watkins has a great fixture. Salah's a great fixture. Matoma's a great fixture. Saka, doubt, but still a great fixture. Bruno, great fixture. Haaland. Doesn't have a great fixture, but he is Haaland. So yeah, appreciate you guys for being around on chat. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll probably hop off a little bit early today just because, unfortunately, I've been overburdened with a little bit of work and I'm going to be working on the weekend. But I hope you guys are well. The man, the myth, and legend says, thoughts on the next manager to get sacked? You know, it's quite tough, actually. I think all managers are in pretty good spots. I suppose if Bournemouth continue to get bad results, then I think the Bournemouth, like Iraola, can get sacked. Like, I'm struggling to think that Burnley's manager can get sacked. And Sheffield United, like, I mean, come on. Like, when you look at that team, it's just expected, isn't it? Luton's actually been okay. But it's like a 4-horse race right now. And everyone else is, like, surviving relegation. I suppose if West Ham continue to have bad results, then Moyes could get sacked, right? Because actually, that West Ham team doesn't look like as bad as it should be on paper when it comes to results. But you could argue those fullbacks need a bit of work as well. I mean, Emerson and Soufal aren't exactly the best. It's quite tough, actually. And I don't think anyone in the top half is obviously getting sacked. Like Chelsea, it's just a matter of time before they actually rise up the table. And then obviously Roy Hodgson continuing to do good work. I guess Ten Hag's actually pretty close to being sacked, right? Yeah, maybe Ten Hag. Maybe Ten Hag. I'd say Ten Hag, Moyes, or Andoni Iraola. All in chat gets a green arrow. Exactly. Hope you guys all get a green arrow. Hope you guys made some good moves. Take care. Someone captain's son. Ran. Says Soldier Boy's copying Harry here. Henry, sorry. Appreciate it, Fran. Have a good day to you as well. 2 free transfer with nothing else to do. Yeah, turn it to Strakosha is fine. Everyone had a really strong team this week, so in those sorts of situations, it's totally fine, you know, justifiable to actually roll. Which team do I support? Real Madrid. Real Madrid. All right, guys. So that's it for me this today. Hope you guys are doing well, and hope you guys take care. Hope you guys get green arrows. Hope you guys made the good moves that you wanted to make, and we'll see you next week, which is going to be international break. So let me know what you guys have thoughts for. Actually, before I go, international break, are there any videos you guys want me to make, like in specific? I think it's interesting because next week is probably the first week where I start to consider start to consider free at 18. I think next week is probably what I'll do. But yeah, if you guys have any thoughts, do drop some comments or even some sort of chats right now. Comments on my future YouTube videos I'll be able to check out. But do let me know. Yeah. All right, guys. Take care. I'll see you guys